Okay, so I actually recorded a whole video that had no sound for 40 minutes. So we're gonna start over. So this is about what I learned since losing my father or grieving my father. Just so we're clear, my dad passed or transitioned November 30th, 2022, and it was during the time in my life where I felt like I was kind of needing him more and more. So I got the message that he was in a hospital, and it said for heart failure. That's what she said, his wife. And I forwarded the message to the group chat for me and my siblings that I was in, and to his father, my mother, another group, I think his sister, and spreading the word. So in my head, I thought people would show up and, you know, be there for him. So that's why I told everybody. But I was pretty disappointed to see how cavalier or slow, really, to the response that I was getting. It kind of disappointed me, and mostly because I felt like at the end of the day, you know, this is, at least for my siblings, I should say, this is how we got here. Respect the portal, you know, respect the journey, your journey, and just show up. If it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't know discipline and consistency. I wouldn't know why it's important to have structure at a young age, because that really sticks with you when you get older, because it's what you need in order to become successful, especially in a lane that you really want to work in. And I remember being with my father when I was like before I even turned or around 1 year old, and then I have lost like years until I was with him again, and my memory picks up when I'm older, a little older. And we always had the same routine during the week for years. So when you are young, or when you're a parent, you create a structure for your child, and when you wake up, you get dressed, you get ready for the day. We made our lunches, we cleaned the house, and then we left. We go to school. We are babysat either by family or neighbors in the neighborhood. Everyone was close-knit. And then we go home. We eat dinner, clean up. I had to sweep the floor. And then we do it all over again. You know what I'm saying? And that was like our routine, me and my older sister and my dad, when it was just us. And that's something that stuck with me throughout my life, because I can always go back to those moments or those days where I knew exactly what was going to happen, because it was the same thing over and over again. And it made me confident in myself, because I always can expect what's going to happen the next day. I can always expect how he was going to be for the most part as well. My dad was very disciplined when it came to work, getting up and the day started. Probably a little bit too much enthusiasm in the morning that I would like, but you know, that's just how he was. I watched him have women, you know, was with women, and how much time he spent alone without women around, and just always seemed like he was very inside himself. Like he was always thinking deeply about things. And I never was quick to judge my father either, because even though, of course, we can always pinpoint where things could have been better or greater between us and another individual, and we may need to shed light on some of the brokenness in the relationship in order to heal and move on in other relationships. But I was never quick to judge my father for anything that he did, because I always knew it was something in all of us, whether people liked it or not, that made us who we were. Not as an excuse, but like as like a meaning, like this is where this comes from. And it wasn't until I got older that I started to learn stuff about my father that I never knew, which kind of helped me to understand why he was the way that he was. Having been a parent now for a few years, where I'm not in immediate access of two of my children like I used to be, I kind of understand that look, that feeling, that look of deep disappointment, yet I'm trying, yet it's not good enough, yet I don't give up. I just keep going. And I feel like a lot of people judge my dad a lot because of how many children he had by several women, and they made jokes about it a lot in the family and stuff like that. But I was never ashamed of my family being the way that it was, even though a lot of people, especially in today's social media age, they clown people a lot for how their families were created, especially if they're big families. But family is abundance, children are abundance, and you gotta do what you gotta do when you're responsible. And one thing I did learn, I think I took away from being with my dad before they pronounced him, was that I felt like he stuck around to see who would show up. I felt like he stuck around to see who would actually care. After all the labor that he put into his life, a lot of labor, I feel like my dad had a lot of stress, just mental conflicts that he never wanted to address openly or freely, but maybe he did in some sort of way with, behind closed doors. I just was like looking at him and just constantly reminding myself, like, don't kill myself for $1. Don't overwork myself for nothing. Like, it's not worth it. And if I'm gonna work hard, like how my dad worked hard, it has to be for something that I stand for and I have a passion for. So I won't feel like I'm in prison. I will feel like I'm living my life the way that I deserve to live it and I want to live it. And it's going to be on my terms, not other people's ideas. And he told me before, don't worry about other people's opinions. They don't matter. They really don't matter. And I was very upset again because I wanted people to have the same enthusiasm I had to be there for my dad. And I felt like a lot of their resentment kept them from inquiring about his wellness, and kind of being in his shoes in the last, I want to say 4 years, when it comes to that distant relationship with the parent. It does weigh on you very heavy. Even if you don't always communicate it, it does weigh on you very heavily. And when you care, it can literally, it'll manifest in all sorts of ways. So how you manage your stress and how you take out that karmic, feeling is very important to your health. And I always ask him, like, did you eat your greens? Are you okay? How are you feeling? I didn't ever want to pry too deeply into, I didn't want to overstep my bounds because he is an adult. I used to sit up and just listen to how my dad talked. My dad would talk a lot, and he will always explain how he felt about situations that he was in, especially when it came to my mother and our family, and what he wants for us as adults. And I used to get upset sometimes when I would need help and I felt like I couldn't ask him because I was so afraid of him saying no. And when I was in Vegas and I had the first of a few panic attacks, he was the first person that I had to call. I had just talked to him the day before too, but my heart was acting funny and I couldn't feel one side of my body. But when I got the strength, I called him and I called him again. Like I think the next day or 2 days after. And when I got back, I asked for his help. Even in Vegas, I did ask for his help because my mother was ready to leave me and my daughter on the street, and we didn't have nowhere to go after leaving my apartment. Even being in a domestic violence situation, I called my daddy like about it. And in the beginning, my dad told my mom that I wasn't going anywhere. I had his last name and he told her I wasn't going nowhere because she thought about adoption. And I understood her plight because she just was so young and having so many children. It was a lot to deal with. But in my 20s, it was like I'm still trying to figure it out, but I wanted to live life on my terms. I didn't want to live a lifestyle that basically was grooming me to hate myself or live in a cage that I didn't want to live in. And trying to explain that to someone who gets strength and confidence from the same exact lifestyles, it's kind of hard to translate that sometimes without feeling or being disrespectful. But it's those differences that want her to just leave us, you know, as is on the street. And my dad told her, no, you can't do that, at least not to your grandchild. So again, saving grace. You know. And coming home, he asked me to be a bit more stable and not move so quickly, so fast all the time. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. It's a challenge and I accept. I also used to move in every other year and then not being stable at all. It did have me a little terrified of like my own sanity, but it's like, no, I can actually draw conclusions, so I'm not losing my mind. It was just about discipline, structure, and me being able to go back to those days where I lived with him those years, and I was able to see how we always maintain a routine. And when I was in moments or days, months, where I had that same particular routine, even with me and my children, I always felt confident in myself. I always felt sure of myself and knew what I was doing, even when things didn't pan out correctly, you know, according to my time clock or my desire. I still kept that same thing, that same routine going, and everything always works out. I think that's very hard for heavy Leo placement, solar energy, is to get disciplined and stay disciplined, because we kind of live sometimes in like a very blissful state where our heart swells with just so many good things that we want to experience, and we can kind of get carried away with that sometimes, which is why discipline is so important, because you can still manifest those great things even when you are truly inspired to do something, especially when it's, you know, creative. For me at least, it's creative. So, but it's the discipline that allows things to really ground. You plant the seed, the idea, and then you let it, you know, flourish, but you have to water it. You have to give it sunlight. You have to do continuous, you know, work towards the goals that you want to make. They don't just, you know, happen overnight in this, you know, time frame. We still got to put the work into things because we're constantly manifesting, and our emotions are the biggest part of our manifestations, and how we feel can really alter how we think or perceive ourselves and the world around us. And since my dad's been gone, I've been very mindful of him telling me to be more stable and to be more careful about how I pivot or make transitions, especially in regards to my children. And I miss him. But I learned a lot about work, what I should work for, what I shouldn't work for, what I should do with my time, and what I can pay dust, even if that is family. Because a lot of times, I mean, we both was raised where there was a time where we had the community of our family to look after us, and it wasn't directly our parent. And being obnoxious or hard-headed landed us in some trouble. However, I'm glad he was able to at least get to the point where he could be an owner-operator for whatever time he was able to do that, because pushing to make goals happen when you have so much weight of maybe pride, guilt, or shame is not easy to do. And when you have a lot of responsibility due to the multiplication of yourself and other human beings, life forms, and that not even being exactly the way, you know, you wish it could be, hope for it to be, want it to be, for any reason, no blame being placed, it's stressful. And I feel like my family doesn't really recognize the amount of stress that he, honestly, I've seen him live with all my life. And for that to kind of like snowball over time starting during the period where I didn't even exist. I feel like a lot of people was very disrespectful during his service, his funeral service, family especially, very disrespectful. I would never find it okay to disrespect somebody's spouse, whether I like them personally or not, because it was never about your ego. It was always about the person you're paying respect to. And I really wish my family would have not dropped the ball on that. If you could put your feelings to the side for a fucking day, that would have been grand. And to disrespect someone's spouse, you literally are disrespecting them. And I don't blame nobody. Yeah, honestly, I don't blame her at all for anything. It was a lot of just disrespect, dismissive attitude, and people thinking you gotta pick sides. There's no fucking sides. It's either you're respectful or you're disrespectful, and that's pretty much it. I always had a soft spot for men, especially men who I know have been wounded because of how I saw my father. And I've been in a lot of relationships with men who had some similar issue or another that I've seen my father go through. And I can't heal those people no more than I can heal my father. The only thing I learned from those situations was to heal the relationship that I have with my father, which I was able to do before he left. And I wish my siblings would have had, the humility to do so, instead of constantly being so erratic and negative or just overly emotional. Like the ego die 1,000 deaths or more in your lifetime, and that's one ego death that wouldn't have hurt. Then you'll be at peace with yourself after he's gone. But I did learn that having a consistent work schedule, especially because being self-employed or an entrepreneur is the goal, I kind of got to be a bit more strict about my time than anybody working a 9 to 5. I've had people just straight up, gaslight me or throw major doubt on to my plans or what I want to do, family included. And I have to remember, like, a lot of people would say, oh, your dad was stingy, he didn't share, or, you know, to a certain point, you know, from their perspective, yeah, you're right. He was stingy. He didn't like to share. Because when you work so hard to create and build stuff, you can't just give it away or share it with any old person, because they won't have the same appreciation as you. And if you were to lose it, they can't get it back for you. And having that type of mentality or attitude about what I create, it will be a saving grace for me. I can't share everything that I do with everybody. I can't share what I'm creating with everybody anymore. It's a lot of that concept I have to implement into my life now that is separating me from a lot of people that I've been close to for at least a decade or more. And it's because I simply don't want to carry the burden or responsibility of trying to do something for someone who can literally do it for themselves. I got tired of being, you know, people's lapdog. I got tired of being someone's babysitter or nanny or support person. And when I needed that energy back, they didn't hesitate to tell me no. And who am I to get upset or, you know, throw a fit? Someone tell me no when they have the right to. So I can be upset, angry, disgruntled, resentful, or I could take my power back and realize that I could do the same thing myself. In fact, I should, because I give a lot of energy and time to things and situations and people, and the balance will probably never really balance out if I really counted it up. Okay, because it all comes back in due time. I just don't have to deal with those people anymore. So if you're watching this, if you're watching this and you feel like I've changed, I'm different, I'm acting funny, I am. I don't give a fuck either. And that's mostly because, just like what my father was trying to teach me and tell me, not only from example, but even in direct communication, I have bigger fish to fry. I'm a boss. And that means I gotta be responsible for how I manage my time. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, financially. I've had people that I've done things for financially when I really didn't even have it. And when the opportunity came for them to return that favor, they threw the speech in my face that I gave them because I literally didn't have it. I literally lost my father, miscarried, moved away from the only source of stability I had, which my grandfather was at the time, somewhere alone, where I don't know anybody. Jumped into college to start learning business management, and I was trying to make sure I got some type of money coming in because I no longer had the transportation I used to have, and building my business that I'm still holding on to piece by piece, building. And it got thrown in my face that I had to tell him, like, I can't, as a grown man, I can't give you money that I have anytime that you need it. My mother always told me that if a man needs money, he don't need me, he'll find a way to get it without me, because he's a man. You have the physical strength and brute to get it done, no questions asked. So for me to tell you no, but you want me to come to you when I need something and I do it, and then you want to throw that in my face, it'll never be the same. It'll never be the same. When I'm constantly there for people, just giving, and now I gotta activate my inner Capricorn and put a stop, put a boundary up. No more. No more fuck off, fuck you, fuck whatever, I don't give a damn. And just be honest and say no. I can't even do it for the love. I can't even, like Tara, like Tara from Love and Hip Hop. I can't even do it for the kids no more. I can't. I just can't. I can't. It's time that I focus on me and my career, and for once, which is something I never have the chance to do. I've been learning a lot about the significance of my father and my relationships. I don't need to do shit for no man who can't take care of me. My dad felt like when I was on my oldest daughter's father that we should be able to work everything out together and figure it out, and he's responsible for me now because we have a family together. And in a perfect world, yeah, most definitely. But because I couldn't depend on him to do a goddamn thing, I had to depend on myself, and that was a hard lesson to learn for me because I always felt like I had to do that as early as I could remember anyway. The things that I desperately needed attention to fix or be supported in, like those certain like high risk areas for me that I really wanted someone to just, hey, focus on this with me. That was a parent or a guardian I didn't really receive when I really needed it the most. And part of it because I didn't know how to ask, because if it didn't fit in this box, it was kind of like a no. And then the other part of it was I knew how hard my parents worked, so I never liked asking them for anything anyway. I always tried to feel like I could figure it out on my own, but then I got to a point where it's like, I'm tired of trying to figure it out on my own. I need help. By that time it's like, you old enough to figure it out on your own now, but I already been doing it. I'm tired, boss. But my dad still helped me. He actually helped my sister with my younger sister way more than he helped anybody else. But when it's not you can't really see it sometimes. But he was able to help me, meet me halfway on some things, and I figured it out. And I used to get mad sometimes with this chip on my shoulder, like, you should be helping me. Like, you're my father, you're supposed to help me. But then it was that also the lesson of, you know, I can't do it all for you. I can't live for you. You got to figure it out and learn how to do it for yourself. And I appreciated it. Harsh, hard lesson, but I appreciated it. And it's the same thing I'm gonna share with my children. Not leaving them to suffer, but as an adult, you do have to eventually start to learn your lessons and figure it out on your own. And I took half of, you know, what was being presented to me out of what I needed, and I found a way to make it work. Obviously, he believes in me enough to leave me to it. Because if I was really, I think if I was really fucked up in the game, which I have been before, and I asked him for help, I got 100%. So then, as I'm moving forward, it's no longer about you being helpless. It's more about, like, are you too comfortable where you are to do something about your situation? So you leaning for someone else to do it for you? Or do you really need help? Or do you just want the help because it makes it easier for you not to grow and stretch yourself out of a situation that you're uncomfortable with being in? I think that's the magic of Capricorn, Saturn energy, is that it forces you to grow up. And a lot of people hate Saturn, they dislike Capricorns and think they kind of like, and sometimes not everybody is good people based on their sign or whatever. But Saturn has a bad rep of forcing you to grow up when you don't want to, in an area of your life where you're trying so hard. You putting so much energy and time into trying to make something good or great or, genius, create this thing, right? And then Saturn comes in and it's like, you could do better. You could do better. Nah, you could do better. And you pour more time in it. You pour more time in it. You pour more time in it. And you keep going through all these lessons, all these mistakes, all these things that kind of bring your ego down a little bit. And I feel like heavy cap placements, cap moon, stelliums, we all feel that energy with Capricorn where it's like you really just like, damn, am I ever going to be happy? Am I ever going to be able to reach this success? Am I ever going to be able to, is there ever going to be a time when like we start to ask those questions to ourselves or to the universe? And the answer is always yeah. The answer is always yes. If you want it, it's yours. It's right here in the now. But if you're not right here in the now, embodying that energy, then where are you? Striving for it outside in the world, thinking if you get this thing, then your life will be okay. If you do this thing, then your family will be okay. If you make this amount of money, then everything will be all right. You're working backwards. That's evil. My dad was a very hard worker. He worked a lot to care for whatever he felt was important in his life. He always worked. Very strong work ethic. I just wish that he took more time to relax, receive, and then push himself to. He didn't push himself so hard all the time. He wasn't so hard on himself because I seen it in his face a lot. He would smile. He could make a joke. Yes. But it was still there. I could feel it. I could see it. And I feel like people who have absolutely no ability to step outside themselves for once in their fucking lives, those people, may they have grace upon their souls when they have to live through the same agony that they given out. It's okay. If my dad was sitting right here in front of me in this very moment, I would thank him for his service. I would thank him for teaching me focus, determination, drive, discipline will, without a doubt, bring me success. And to be grateful for it. Be grateful for that. I'll thank him for that. Thank him for that. But I'll also let him know that I will never slave to or for anything other than my own joy, happiness, and love. That's what I learned from him and his life and how things went from my perspective. I can work so hard to see my children happy, to see the things I create blossom and bloom and grow. I can work so hard, spend so much time and energy into it. But if right here, right now, I'm not feeling whole, complete, and joy within myself, it's waste. Nothing will ever be good enough. People will come into my life and never be good enough, even when they are. I might put that burden on my children, to strive in the world, when really they need to be striving for what's inside. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Everything that matters the most is inside. And that's what I've been learning through my grieving process, is to not strive so much for what's on the outside. Don't strive for the world. Don't strive for things, material things. Don't strive for that. They will always be here. Always. It might not be when I want it to be. That's what law of assumption is for. But don't strive for money. Don't strive for material things. Strive for in here. Strive to connect with in here. Strive to touch what's in here. Because when you strive to connect to what's in here, the material will come. The opportunities will come. The money will come. The admiration will come. And even when it does, continue to strive in here. Keep in touch in here. And like my dad would say, you know, opinions don't matter. It ain't none of your business what people think about you. Literally, it's none of your business what other people got to say about you. Just stay in here. Stay in touch and in tune with what's in here. And I would tell him that I love that I was able to learn from his mistakes or lessons. Even if I repeated some of them, I'm learning from everything. Everything. I'm learning. One thing I would say that I learned is from him is forgiveness. True love never dies. It really doesn't matter what other people think. It's all about who and what makes you happy. If you respect it, that's all that matters. And I also learned from him is to celebrate while you're here. Cause my daddy used to have some fly jackets and hats. So I'd be like, where this nigga going? Yeah, take time to celebrate your hard work. Celebrate yourself. And sometimes the hard work is just keeping a positive mind. Whatever it means to me, really. If my dad was here, I would tell him I miss him being in my dreams. And I wish my daughter was able to meet him. I knew he wasn't going to be here for long after that, like, shudder that I had when he came to visit and he left his Black and Mild in the ashtray, and I just looked at it like, yeah, he was here, but like I'm getting an eerie feeling, like altered. I felt like he stuck around as long as he could to see who would show up for him in the hospital that day. And he got to see who was there and who wasn't. He got to see who felt urgency and who did not. My parents ain't never got to worry about if I loved them or not, if I listened or not. They may have, but then they see that I listen. But yeah, I was not about to let another minute go by without flying to my father. I don't care what you thought he did or didn't do. I was gonna be there. I couldn't ignore that and just like, I didn't understand that at all. But it's not me, so anyway, we're at 46 minutes. I'm gonna stop it here.